A good bastard is like a fine wine, smooth, tart, and French. Social dynamics in wrestling frequently take on mythical, godly status, which means that the heroes are very heroic and the bad guys are arseholes to the power 12. WWE has seen countless cockends who legitimately infuriated the fans, X-Pac, Triple H, Kurt Angle's son, but it takes a great talent to be a top bastard. You have to be an unconscionable sod, but someone who carries themselves with charm, swagger, and a certain charisma that makes you nearly forgive them for all of their misdeeds, even as they're stamping your dog to death and giving you the thumbs up while they do it. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic.com, and here are the top 10 WWE bastards you can't help loving. Join us. Number 10, Kevin Owens. Now, we here at Cultaholic are big fans of friendship. After all, that's the only reason we keep asking you to join us, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the weird hospital we're building under the River Tyne, or our insistence that everyone who joins us has healthy organs. With that in mind, Kevin Owens is the worst friend in the history of bracelets. He's pathologically untrustworthy, emotionally needy, easily jealous, and prone to express all of that by breaking your spine on, quote, the hardest part of the ring. Sami Zayn and Chris Jericho have both played friendship Russian roulette with Kevin Owens and lost, and yet, despite being a total bastard, he's just so lovable. Now sure, this has something to do with the fact that genetically he's 85% hamster and you want to feed him a carrot, but it also just seems like he's a reasonable dude. Everything he does is out of sheer rebellion against what he perceives to be an unfair system, gamed against him and his potential to provide for his family. He may do the wrong things, but he's so charming that he always seems like he's doing them for the right reasons. So much so that Sami Zayn has found it in his heart to forgive KO, and we're sure that decision will never backfire. Number 9, Ted DiBiase. Being rich and being a bastard often seem to be two sides of the same coin, especially when the person in question has enough of those coins that he could fill a swimming pool with them and swim around Scrooge McDuck style. When he wasn't stuffing his surplus wealth into the mouths of his enemies, careful now, it was the 80s and those banknotes are mostly cocaine, then he was buying entire swimming pools in order to evict kids just trying to have a nice day. He was a swaggering plantation-era dandy with a complete disregard for human life, but hell, sometimes you've just got to respect a man's wardrobe. Look at those suits. Just look at them. Now, I'm not saying you have to buy me this authentic sequin jacket worn by Ted, but if you do, you'll be guaranteed a VIP wing in our weird hospital. Number 8, The Miz. The Miz has really flourished over his, 14-year career with WWE. He's transitioned right across the villain spectrum, starting out as a stupid hat-wearing dick before transforming into a Weasley prick and finally emerging into his final Pokemon state, A-list Hollywood bastard. Aside from a brief ill-advised face run, The Miz has always been an objectionable weapon, but his A-list persona is sheer perfection and has seen him cement himself as frequently the best performer on Raw week in and week out. He's intensely charismatic, impressively cunning, especially in tandem with wife Maurice, and often hilarious. Sure, fundamentally he's a manipulative, self-aggrandizing buttman, but he's also a reliable ambassador for the company outside of the ring, a consummate professional, and he and Maurice seem to be one of the few actually emotionally stable couples in wrestling. Number 7, Roddy Piper. The original WWF bastard, Rowdy Roddy Piper, was the first proper villain to receive a main event showcase after Vince McMahon bought his dad's company. Piper's interaction with Mr. T and Cyndi Lauper, even going so far as to kick Lauper in the head in a segment, captured mainstream attention and set WrestleMania 1 on the path to major success. He was a very bad man, make no mistake he'll come for you with a coconut, but Piper was also the funniest wrestler of the 80s. Every episode of Piper's Pit was a riot, often literally, and that was down entirely to Piper's erratic, explosive charisma. You do not throw rocks at a man who has got a machine gun, screamed Piper, and yep, we believed him. We hated him too. He kicked Cyndi Lauper in the head after all, but we also respected him for his sheer force of personality. Number 6, Sherri Martel. WWE's female roster has played host to an eclectic and fabulous array of truly dreadful women over the past few decades. Trish was sneering poison incarnate, Alexa Bliss has picked up that torch brilliantly, Lita ruled the roost during the no but seriously look at my boobs incarnation of the character, but no one was as wonderfully, flamboyantly evil, nor as trend-setting as Sherri Martel. Hugely accomplished, not only was Sherri a WWF Women's Champion in her own right, but she also managed some of the greatest heels to grace a ring. Names like Randy Savage, Ric Flair, the Honky Tonk Man, Ted DiBiase, and Shawn Michaels. She was vicious and cruel, but like most of the bastards on this list, she was staggeringly good at her job, be that screeching promos full of terrifying invective, pratfalling with Heenan-esque abandon, or applying so much makeup to her face that even RuPaul would tell her to take it down a few steps. She was the perfect heel manager, and she's sorely missed. Number 5, Edge. The rated R superstar was very much the all-purpose bastard, with his shenanigans stretching beyond the television cameras and affecting the personal lives of those around him. In 2005, few backstage stories gained more headlines than the story that Edge and Lita had been conducting an affair behind the back of Lita's long-term bae, Matt Hardy. When the philandering became public knowledge, WWE doubled down on Edge's newfound bastard status, turning him into a crazed, sexually adventurous creep with one eye forever on how best to exploit his current situation. The character of Edge was that of an Omega-level douche, but Edge threw himself into it with such wide-eyed relish that, again, it was almost inevitable that he would become one of the most decorated and beloved world champs in WWE history. Number 4, Paul Heyman. When you talk about people who have taken shady accusations about their past and used them to craft a watertight wrestling character, few have done that with the theatrical aplomb as Paul Heyman. Simply put, Paul Heyman is one of the smartest brains in wrestling. Realizing early on that integrity is a sucker's game, he emerged from ECW as a slippery character, a renowned liar, and someone whose checks bounced higher than Plastic Man. With total disregard for popularity, Heyman embraced this persona through his long and storied career in WWE, where he portrayed an untrustworthy, sleazing huckster with total abandon. He's a smarmy, egotistical snake oil salesman, a slightly greasier P.T. Barnum, and his eloquence and almost eerie charisma have him elevated to becoming one of the most reliably superb mic workers in the history of wrestling. When you consider that the foundation of wrestling is selling a match to the public, he may just be WWE's most valuable performer. Number 3, Shawn Michaels. Now, if you've ever watched a wrestling list before, you probably don't need me to tell you that Shawn Michaels was a copper-bottomed dick before his first in-ring retirement in 1998. He was arrogant, erratic, emotionally unstable, and also one of the best wrestlers in the world at the time, which was super tricky for Vince McMahon. However, as obnoxious as Shawn Michaels undoubtedly was, even by his own admission, what's also undoubtable was his infectious personality. His unique brand of being a total bellend was the founding stone of DX, a stable that emerged as one of the pioneering voices of the much-loved Attitude Era. Even after HBK found God and bettered himself, he was still a bastard, evidenced by the fact that the acclaimed Jericho-Michaels feud of 2008 all came about because Y2J couldn't understand why people still cheered for Shawn, even as he repeatedly lied and cheated his way to victory. Number 2, Ric Flair. The dirtiest player in the game and perhaps the best. Ric Flair built a decade of excellence in the 1980s around being one of the worst types of self-aggrandizing bastard. His penchant for Rolex watches, $1,000 shoes, and having sex with your wife and sending Polaroids of him doing that to everyone in your immediate family made him the most hated, but also one of the highest drawing heel champions in wrestling history. People couldn't get enough of this manic whirlwind of charisma and opulence, traveling for miles just to see him hopefully get his ass kicked. Even in his old age, actually especially in his old age, Flair is still the bastard we all know and love, even getting fresh with poor Becky Lynch. That's aged poorly. Number 1, Vince McMahon. I mean, what can you say about Vince McMahon that can't also be said by shaking the magic 8-ball of crazy immoral perverts? Vince McMahon has made women bark like dogs, committed blasphemy in a church, strangled his daughter with a lead pipe, and a myriad of other crimes that rank just below Space Laser on the supervillain scale. And yet, despite all of his egomania, or maybe even because of it, Vince McMahon is unavoidably lovable. Fans may roll their eyes at some of his business practices and be very turned off indeed by his kissing technique. Why do you kiss so weird, Vince? But few can deny that when he struts down that ramp, as only he can, everyone is very happy to see him. And that's our list. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and you can follow me on Twitter here. If you want to support what we do here at Cultaholic, you can pledge to our Patreon, patreon.com/Cultaholic. And most importantly, don't forget to hit subscribe and join us.